and welcome to another Unfiltered Gamer Review. Today on the chopping block, Captain Sonar. Captain Sonar is a game for 2 to 8 players made by Madagot Games. Now, Captain Sonar is a very interesting style of a game. There's a lot of stipulations involved, but all in all, the game functions rather nicely. Now, with Captain Sonar, it says 2 to 8 players, but realistically, you want as many players as possible. I played this with 2, I played this with 3, 6, 7, and 8. And I got the most enjoyable experience with that 8-player style of gameplay. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a brief summary and overview of what the game looks like down below on the table. And after that, I'll tell you exactly what I think about the game and whether or not you should purchase this game. Alright guys, well, here we are. Obviously, you guys can only see one little aspect of the game, and that would be these two. There actually is 2 of them, 2 large blockades. Now, why are there blockades? Well, that's fairly simple. In this game of 2 to 8 players, you're going to have 2 teams. You have to have 2 teams in order to play this game. You'll have at least 1 person on one side, 1 person on the other. And for games that are more odd, like 5 or 7 players, you'll have 3 and 4 or 2 and 3. Is the game as balanced with that? I suppose it can be to an extent, and at times I've heard other people say that it's not as balanced. I think this game really requires you to have 4 or 8 players. 2 players is just, it's not doable. You really can't do it. Now let's go ahead and get rid of these. This is just an idea of what the border looks like. And on one side of the map, there will obviously be 2 sides to this map with the exact same 4 little placards. And each placard does something different. The first placard we're going to be talking about is going to be this one here. And this is the captain's functions. So, on the captain's functions, the very beginning of the game, you start off by writing your name down and whatever other titles you want to write down. And these are all your little areas for notes. Now, a couple of boards have them. So as the captain of the ship, because there's 4 roles, captain, first mate, engineering, and the radio operator. He basically controls the sonar. I'll go into each one in detail, but we'll first talk about this one. Now, the captain will choose a location on the map and place a dot. After he's done placing a dot, he will then decide which way he wants to go. Now, this game is very similar to the game of Battleship in terms of each side has a submarine, and these submarines are trying to shoot and blow each other up. You only get 1 submarine, and submarines each have a total of 4 health. When that submarine is exploded, it's game over and the other team wins. Now, you can do the game 2 different ways. You can either do it turn by turn, or you can do it in real time. Realistically though, there's only one way to do this game, and it's in real time. Why? Well, you could do it turn by turn, but it takes away the key component to the most enjoyable aspect of the game. The fact of the faster, more more like cooperative a team can be, the more likely you are to succeed. And it kind of gives you an idea of learning the various maneuvers and working together as a single unit. And if you can do that better than another team, you function more successfully, and more than likely you're going to win. Now what will happen is the captain will then say, I'm going to head north, or east, or west, or south. When he does that, he'll move his little piece, his little, what do you want to call it, like a line, I suppose, upward. And that will indicate on the map where the captain is, or the entire submarine is. So he would be at F9. And then he would continually doing that. So he would move up again, heading north, heading north. Now that's pretty much all the captain does. But the captain's main function is to get his ship as close to the enemy ship without the enemy spotting him. So, after the captain will do his first movement, we will then pass it along to either the engineer or the first mate. We'll go ahead and talk about the engineer. Every time the captain makes a movement, the engineer will then be forced to mark down a location on his map. Here we have west, north, south, and east. If the captain chooses to move north, like we did in the example, then the engineer would look on the placard, see north, and he would mark off a location, one of these 6 locations on the north side. When he marks it off, he is done, and he will say the engineering has been completed. Okay? Now, with the engineer, the more pieces you mark off, the less functionality your machine has. If you mark off a red space, like this one here, then your machine's not going to be able to shoot torpedoes and place mines. If he marks off a yellow space, he will not be able to have the machine do a scenario option or the move silent option, which allows your ship to move from, I think it's like 1 to 3 spaces, 1 to 4 spaces, without informing the other team's radio engineer where you're going. I'll explain that in a little bit here. And the last thing is the little green space. The green space allows you to use drones and sonar, so if that's marked off, you won't be able to use that. And as long as these spaces are marked off, you cannot use those locations on the first mate tab, which will be explained in a second here. Okay, so let's go ahead and say I move north. So I'm going to mark off this guy here. Now, obviously in the example I also continued to move north, so maybe I would have had to mark off 2 more. At that point, you notice these little constructional like diagrams here. You got the yellow one, you got the orange one, you got the gray one. So in order to revive your submarine without taking damage, you would have to mark off this guy here, which would then make this whole function erase all on its own, and the engineer can wipe the function off all by himself. So if I move north 3 times and east once, you could clear the board, and then the machine is able to use all of its abilities. Now, if you do not want to, or you must choose, I mean, if you want to, or you must choose to, so for instance, if you've moved north 3 times and the captain says north again, and you're not being very smart and informing the captain that you need to basically stop and, retrack or go somewhere else, you'll have to start marking these spaces here. Now, these ones can only be erased when you have to resurface. Now, the bad thing about that is, since you can't erase them manually, resurfacing is a timed technique that takes a little bit of time. And these little things here, these little, what do you want to call them, biohazard symbols, if you mark all of them, you take damage. So that could be a problem. Another way is if you cannot do anything, you will take damage. If you choose to, if you have no other moves left, the only thing you can do is resurface. So resurfacing is pretty simple. There's 4 little locations here, and if you're playing an 8-player game, each player would mark in the location like this by drawing in through the lines. And if he does a good job, he'd put his initials in, and the next player would go ahead and do the next thing. Like that. Now, obviously, if you're not drawing in the lines, after the play is passed, you take this little chart, after all these are filled in, you take this little submarine thing here and you pass it to the first mate or engineer of the other ship. They'll look at it, they'll say, okay, you did a good job, or ooh, you didn't do a good job, have to do it again. It's kind of subjective, but more than likely, if you're playing with friends, they're going to be like more or less fair. And obviously, if you do a too rushed of a job, it's going to turn out poorly. So after that happens, it takes a little bit of time, obviously. The other team is still playing. You'll be able to remove all of these locations here on the map, okay? So that's basically what happens. Captain will move, he'll say his location, engineer will mark the location on one of these things. Can't move anymore, have to surface. Mark all these guys up here, have to surface. If these are marked and you can't use any abilities, you'll also have to surface. And surfacing is just the drawing in of the lines. Okay, the next one here is the first mate. The first mate is very simple. The captain will say northeast, west, or south, and the first mate will mark one of these: mines, torpedoes, sonar, drones, silence, or specifically in a scenario. He's also in charge of marking damage on the ship if you take damage. When these spaces get marked fully, boop, 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 then you're able to use that space, provided the space is not marked on the engineering space. Like I said previously, if a red space is marked, you can't use this ability until it is removed by either surfacing or clearing one of those functions. Mines are simple. You'll place them next to your ship, and the captain will say when and how he'd like to blow them up. He'll just say, stop, I'd like to blow up a mine in this location, K7, J7, whatever it might be. Torpedoes is he's able to shoot. So if he marks all of these, you'll be able to shoot with your ship up to 4 spaces away, and it will blow up in a squared location, which is kind of shown here. It might be pretty difficult to see, but basically you get 9 spaces. If you shoot directly on, you get 2 damage. If it blows up on the next to it, the ship will take 1 damage. The drones and sonar are basically used to locate the enemy ship. A drone will be used to indicate which section of the board that the enemy ship is on. So for instance, if I use, take this piece off, if I use a drone and the enemy ship is here, the enemy will have to say, we are in Sector 3. For sonar, The enemy will have to determine what they want. They have to tell one truth and one false, and they can either say their square, their letter, or their number, and then the other one has to be a lie. So maybe they'll say M, which is the truth, and 5, which is a lie. So we'll now know that they are in here somewhere. Now, if I also use the drone, I would also have this idea. So then I would know that they're more than likely either here, here, or here. Okay? Unless, however, M was not true, and it was 5 that was actually true, and I knew that they were in here. Then it would be marked in here somewhere. So that's kind of how it works, basically. Running silent is the last thing, which is this little yellow spot here. Basically, when you're running silent, you can move your ship in any direction up to 4 spaces without having to say anything. So you don't have to say, moving north. You'll just say, I'm running silent. And that could be anywhere up to 4 spaces. So that is pretty much what the first mate does. Now, the last, and in my opinion, most important aspect of this game is called the radio operator. And it might be difficult to see, but there's a little sheet here. And what he does is he will place a dot on the map anywhere he wants to start the game, and the enemy will start saying things out loud, like you would on your team. So he might say, moving north, moving east, moving south, and so on and so forth. And he'll start to create this diagram. And what you'll see is it's going through these little island locations, so we know that he's definitely not here. So the radio operator start moving around the map, trying to figure out, ooh, maybe he's over here, or maybe he's over there. So you have certain areas. So perhaps he'll be over here, right? And then we'll find out with a sonar that he's over here somewhere. So we'll say, okay, well, we now know he's over in that location. So we'll go ahead and move it maybe somewhere over here. Oh, okay. And so as you can see, you start to try and figure out where the enemy is, either by how the enemy has been blasting his mines, or shooting his torpedoes, or the sonar, or any of that kind of stuff. And the radio operator will talk to the captain and inform him where he thinks that the enemy ship is, and they'll start firing back and forth at each other. And that pretty much is the game. After 4 damage, one of the teams will win, based on who takes that 4 damage. There's a couple other little scenarios. There's tons of different maps, tons of different little designs, a couple of different scenario rules. It comes with a bunch of these little markers here, which are okay. I have had no issues with them so far. They haven't run out in the last 4 or 5 games I've played. So take that as you will. And there are tons of different maps, different designs. There is the turn-by-turn, which is smaller, and then there is the real life, which is faster. And they just keep going, and there's tons of different little scenarios. A good amount of game in here. Good amount of replayability. We only actually even used 2 maps in this game. So that is basically how you play the game. Now let's go ahead and discuss what I think about the game and whether or not you should pick it up. Alright guys, so that's basically how you play the game. 2 teams, 2 submarines, 4 health, and a bunch of little maneuverability and change of scenarios, a whole bunch of little different replay value, It's a fairly good game in my opinion. There is a lot lacking when it comes to the amount of players you can play it with, honestly. Like 2, 3, 4, 5 players, it's not very good. 6 and 8 is probably where you want it, honestly. And those odd player groups are okay, presumably that one player is newer, so you can just jump them on board and have them do one of the more simple, portions of the game. Obviously, some aspects of the game are more difficult than others to play. So, like that sonar operator, the guy who's basically doing the radio controls or whatever, he is definitely one of the more difficult roles to play. And if he messes up, honestly, if you mess up with the operator, go ahead and clear the map and start again. And you don't want to try and fiddle with it, because it's just going to cause your team a lot of grief. The game is very fun, though. It's really intense, and if you got that sweet spot of 8 players where you're just going at it, it's wonderful. It really is. It's a pretty unique experience too. I couldn't really explain this game in any better way than just saying it's real-time Battleship. That's as good as I can get. And that might not sound that great because Battleship's, in my opinion, not that wonderful of a game. So it's kind of a different dog, on its own. The game, the quality of the components is pretty good. I think. I like the border. I think it does a good job. The artwork, as you can see, is fairly good too, in my opinion. They spend a good amount of time trying to make the game work. Yeah, I really like it. I purchased it after seeing a couple reviews on my own, and I was like instantly turned on by this game. I saw it. I was just like, oh yeah, 8-player game. There's not a lot of good big group games out there that give you that action feeling. You know, they're usually party games, and there are some pretty good party games out there. Don't get me wrong. One of the games that I'm actually giving away, the Wits and Wagers game, is a terrific party game. You can find any review online you want. You're going to see heralding reviews of that game. But this game specifically is a very good real-time strategy, like anxiety kind of like inducing game. So if you're prone to like not liking confrontation, you probably would want to stay away from this game. But if you like that action real-time experience where you're going in there and you're just blasting the hell out of somebody else, I would definitely recommend it. Honestly, pick it up if you even think for the slightest moment that you can get a play group of 8 players that are interested in just going at it in this real-time Battleship experience. So that's basically what I have to say about the game. If I were to rate it between the scale of mine, which is burning the damn game, or appraising it into my collection, this is definitely another one of those into my collection games. I would definitely not be burning this game. However, in the next couple reviews, you might see a couple games that I'm about to burn because I played them. And I do not like them for many, many reasons, but not this one. This one's good. This one's solid. This one would be a grade of a B+, a 4 out of 5, or something like that. But it's very niche, niche, I don't know, whatever. But it's very, specific to your play group that you have the time. I don't pull this game out every night. We can't just go, let's go set Captain Sonar with 5 players. It just doesn't, it's not a thing you do. We got an 8-player, group, and there's not a lot of, they're all kind of action, kind of guys. This is the game I pull out every time. And it's super fun. We have a great experience, and most people get it rather quickly. So that's it, guys. That's the review. That's what I got. If you're interested in seeing some of our new blog posts that are coming up this week, go ahead and check us out at unfilteredgamer.com. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, all the other social media platforms. You just type in Unfiltered Gamer and you'll find us. Like I said, the giveaway is on Unfiltered Gamer. Click on the giveaway tab and just sign up. It's free. You get a game, or maybe, who knows? Just do it. Yeah. So if you got any comments, share, like, subscribe. Please subscribe. Help me out. That would be much appreciated. Otherwise, that's another game review. Hope you guys had a good time, and I'll catch you next time.